First month, I think some of the commissioners that were around said, huh? How are we going to do that? But we figured out a way to do that and to build a subway line that I know you're going to be at tomorrow, a light rail and subway line that will link up to that people mover so that people don't have to worry about those 7 words that I mentioned. When an athlete walks off a plane in 2028, she comes to the Paralympics or Olympic Games for the first time. When a local student gets her first passport, as a community college student, it's part of our program to allow them to travel abroad for the first time. They leave home and then come back here. LAX will be that iconic place that continues to make dreams and continues to mark dreams. So we are, if you look around, a coalition that represents the very best of the city. There's businesses and workers that do the work. There's public servants that step forward, whether it's to pass legislation and funding or to implement those programs. And a community that has embraced an airport that for so often had turned its back to the airport. As my friend Mike Bonner often says, we want it to be a world-class airport that is also a first-class neighbor. Or maybe he says first-class, world-class, I don't know. He's not here, so I'll quote him. But if you look next to us, you can see this now completed 2.25 mile long automated people mover that rises up almost like a Roman aqueduct. This is big stuff. It leads all the way past in the station behind us, the recently modernized terminals 2 and 3, connecting Los Angeles to the world and the world to Los Angeles. North of here, past the runway, is a newly completed centralized police airport facility. Airport police, one of the largest, I want to thank our police officers, one of the largest forces dedicated to airport safety anywhere in America. To have the tools and the technology they need. Just east of here, our newly opened state-of-the-art LAX common parking facility with 4,300 new parking stalls and EV charging stations for folks who are bringing the next generation vehicles forward. And by the end of next year, the end of this line will go to a building where we can consolidate our car rentals, Mr. Secretary, which is only slightly smaller than a Pentagon, a building you can see from space. And you can drop somebody off coming out the 405 and get back on the 405 and you don't even have to come down Central Boulevard. So this is the city and the airport of the future that our people and this nation deserves. And we are so grateful to you, so grateful to the administration, to each and every one of you, from the press to our police to everybody else who is here today to voice this. Anybody need Spanish before I introduce them? Claramente también en español. Buenas tardes a todos y gracias por venir. Gracias por acompañarnos hoy en este día tan especial para Los Ángeles. Estoy muy emocionado de darle la bienvenida a nuestra ciudad, un gran amigo y un extraordinario líder, el secretario de Transportación, Pedro Burgos. Y hoy celebramos una gran inversión histórica de $50 millones, parte de la ley de infraestructura, gracias al congresista Maxine Juárez también por su papel en este dinero, la cual invierte miles de millones de dólares en nuestros aeropuertos. Por medio de esta inversión podremos construir la infraestructura crítica, modernizar nuestros terminales, reducir la conducción y emisiones. Y todo esto mientras crecemos nuestra economía y proveer nuestros trabajos para nuestra comunidad. Lo que construimos hoy es el futuro que nuestra gente merece. With that, let me turn it over to Chris Hansen, who is a great leader of a lot of great workers and great building trades. We can say that people design these, engineers, architects, and others, policymakers funded, think about it, but it is working men and women who actually, human beings with their hands, make this a reality. And we appreciate you being here, Chris. Chris?
Thank you, Mayor. On behalf of the Los Angeles Orange County's Building Construction Trades Council, our 48 affiliated building trade unions, and our 140,000 members, I want to thank Secretary Buttigieg for coming to California. I want to thank Congresswoman Waters for her leadership and the leadership of the Biden administration for delivering to the American people what decade and decade has been talked about and celebrated in Infrastructure Week time and time again and never delivered. It was the Biden administration and this U.S. Congress and the leadership of Congresswoman Waters that delivered to the American people a meaningful infrastructure plan that could build the infrastructure of this country for thousands and millions for generations to come. Secretary Buttigieg, I want you to personally take back to President Biden our thankfulness from all of our members, not just our members today, but the generations of new apprentices that will come into our unions, just as I did years before, and enjoy careers building their community. Through our apprenticeships, we're going to have thousands of opportunities working on projects like Los Angeles World Airports, and with fantastic local leadership, with the leadership of the mayor of the city of Los Angeles, Mayor Garcetti, our city council, our LAWA Board of Commissioners, our LAWA CEO, Justin Urbachi. We're going to create opportunities for the local community, communities that are impacted from the world moving about. The impact areas of this airport is going to have first opportunity to come to work on this airport. We're going to have programs like we do today at Los Angeles Southwest College and our Higher LAX programs, where the community can come in and find about careers like I've enjoyed building my community, and we're offering that. We have regular applications, so any Angelino hearing this message today, look up Higher LAX, look up Los Angeles Southwest College, our building trades unions and apprenticeships, and our union contractors, because of our project labor agreement, and out of the need for you to help build our greater community together. Those opportunities are open today and every day in the future because of the leadership of the Biden administration, the U.S. Congress, and this bipartisan infrastructure plan. So on behalf of all of our existing 140,000 members, our local building trades unions, and all of our future members and new apprentices to come, I want to thank you, Secretary Buttigieg. I want to thank you, Congresswoman Waters. I want to thank you, Mayor, for creating opportunities for all of us. Thank you.
Well said, Chris. Thank you for your leadership. Bee Shu is our next speaker. She's the president of the Board of Airport Commissioners, which is a citizen group. They don't get paid a single dime for the long hours they put in, but it is a labor of love, and they do an extraordinary job. And I want to thank each of them. I got to know Bee when I first came to City Hall. She was part of my first team as a city council member. She got smart enough to head to the private sector, but I tapped her to come back to do public work for even less. As I said, $0, and she's been an extraordinary president. I want to ask her to come forward on behalf of the Board of Airport Commissioners and the LAX team. Bee?
For that introduction and for your leadership over the past 9 years to transform our airports. It's so exciting to stand here and look around and see all of that vision coming to fruition in real time around us. Thank you also to Representative Waters for being here today with us, but also for being here with us always and being such an important partner and supporter of our airports and our initiatives here, and for being a champion of the bipartisan infrastructure law. I'd also like to acknowledge the incredible leadership of our CEO, Justin Urbachi, who is an honor to work alongside here at the airport with, and to thank my fellow commissioners, most of whom are here with us today, and all of whom give very generously of their time and energy and expertise, all in civic service of making LA and the airport the best it can be. On behalf of our entire board, we are thrilled to host you, Secretary Buttigieg, for today's announcement. President Biden, Secretary Buttigieg, and the entire administration has been steadfast in their support for rebuilding our nation's critical infrastructure, and that is exactly aligned with what we have been busy doing here in LA as we continue to work on our $15 billion modernization that you see going on everywhere around you. It's one of the largest capital programs of any airport in the country today. And we're embarking on an even greater investment on our infrastructure through our near airfield and terminal modernization project, which will add new terminals, airfield improvements, and a new roadway access system. We are extremely grateful to the administration for choosing LAX as one of the recipients of this first round of grant funding. These funds will be an important component of our future capital investment. Will be used to create a better roadway experience for travelers accessing our airport. This is a very big win for our guests and for our visitors and for our community here in LA. And it will contribute in a meaningful way to something that's been foundational in our building program. And that has been our commitment to creating good paying union jobs with career paths through our airport modernization. That is supported in no small part by our Hire LAX program, participants of which we have here today. I want you to wave and be acknowledged for a moment. We're so proud of this program and the program participants that have come out of it that are helping to build our airport. And I'm so honored and appreciative that the Secretary had the time this morning to meet some of our Hire LAX graduates and hear some of their stories and appreciate what we're doing here. And thank you also to the LA and Orange County Building Trades for being such an important partner in all of this. Executive Secretary Chris Hannon for your partnership on that program and for joining us here today. As we prepare to welcome the world in coming years to global events like the 2026 World Cup, the 2028 Olympic and Paralympic Games, the infrastructure we're building today is going to help LA and the United States put its best foot forward to the world. So thank you again to the Biden administration and Secretary Buttigieg for all your support as we build a better LAX for our city, state, and our country. Thank you for your investment in LA.
Thanks so much, Dee. Wonderful as always. Every day I wake up as a mayor of the city of Los Angeles, I feel like one of the luckiest people in the world. But I feel especially lucky when I get to spend 3 times in 3 weeks time with Maxine Waters, who's one of my heroes and mentors, and a woman who has really been critical in hammering home that infrastructure has to be paid for and we have to start rebuilding this country. We were at opening of homeless housing just last week. She has been tireless in building up economic equity for her district and for all people of color in this United States of America and building a fair America. We wouldn't be here today were it not for her advocacy, a longtime proponent of a more modern and fair airport. We are here hopefully delivering what you dreamed about today. Please welcome our Congressmember, Maxine Waters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for that very generous introduction. I am delighted, honored, and pleased to be here at this announcement. Secretary Buttigieg, thank you for coming to Los Angeles. This is an early stop for you, and so I'm going to be the envy of so many of my colleagues that you got here so early to make this wonderful announcement. To be here with all of you today, it really does indicate what it means when we all work together. To have the mayor of the city of Los Angeles, who is very special when it comes to understanding the needs of the airport. As a matter of fact, I spent a few minutes with him before coming up. He knows every inch of this airport. He knows exactly what they're doing, and he has his own ideas about some other expansion ideas that he is going to put forward. So first of all, I want to give the mayor a big round of applause for his involvement and his understanding. To organize labor, I am so very pleased about the jobs that are going to be created, union jobs, good paid jobs, jobs that will help families to move forward, to send their children to college, to buy a home. This is so very important, and particularly at a time when we're all worried about inflation. We can deal with inflation if we deal with our infrastructure. And it was not easy getting to this point. As you know, when we come to a point in Washington, D.C., where we can get both sides of the aisle to work together to put something on the president's desk, it is absolutely extraordinary. It does not happen easily, but that's what we were able to do, because I think both sides of the aisle understand if we are to have a productive economy, we've got to have the jobs that are necessary for people to earn a decent living and to put that money back into the economy. So I'm delighted to be here today, and I want to say to Lawa and to the board, I know you had to work hard in this community. I've been working with this community almost 20 years. It's not easy. Westchester does not play. And so I want you to know that while we all understand this is an economic engine that we love, we also have to take into consideration the concerns of the community. I don't think there's any other community adjacent to an airport that is as productive as this particular neighborhood. Westchester pays attention. They call you when they hear noise. They call you if they think they smell something. They call you when you say you're going to expand. And all of them are worried all the time about how we live together exactly how we work together, but you found a way to do it. And so I found a way to keep you happy and keep them happy too. And that's an extraordinary political feat, I want you to know. Thank you all so much for being here today. This is very, very important. I'm looking forward to the modernization. Again, I know how much work has gone into dealing with all of the concerns and all of the issues. But I'm pleased because I see some of my contractors here today. I see some of them who understand that we're working on diversity and inclusion, and there's going to be opportunity for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madam Chairwoman. Thank you, as always, for your national leadership. Pete Buttigieg is one of my favorite people in the world. Notice I didn't say elected officials, because elected officials are nice to each other. Well, some of them, and you try to do your best. But he's a human being who I've just come to love and admire over many years. We both kind of figured out how much we had in common. We both played the piano. We were both mayors. We both served in the U.S. Naval Reserve, as did Sean Bird, one of our commissioners, as intelligence officers. My wife's family's from Indiana, just a little bit south of where Mayor Buttigieg served as mayor. And so we hit it off a long time ago. And one of the things that we talked about when we were both mayors was dreaming about a moment when this country would invest in infrastructure. I have to say, Pete, if I may, to Mr. Secretary, it is a dream come true to not only see this day here, but to see you at the tip of that spear, actually delivering not just the programs and the money and the political success of this, but also the implementation. Because you know when you have somebody smart in the area who's actually doing the implementation, all the stupid rules of the past, all the things we forgot to integrate are going to be folded into this. So thank you for your leadership, not only in getting us to this point, but I know where you will take us. And I hope you will always consider Los Angeles a second city of yours. You have so many friends and fans that are here. We are so honored to have you here. Please welcome United States Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg.
Thank you so much, Eric, Mayor, for the kind introduction and more importantly for your leadership, for your friendship. Mayor Garcetti's leadership when it comes to infrastructure is, of course, well known in this community, also well known and much admired among the community of American mayors, and very much admired and appreciated in the Biden-Harris administration too. You have so much to be proud of, Mayor. It's always a pleasure and honor to be here with you. To see the extraordinary things that you and your community achieve. I want to thank Board President Hsu. I want to thank everyone on the extraordinary professional leadership team here at LAX and all of the workers who make this place what it is. I want to recognize and thank Chris Hannon and everybody with organized labor who have taken such extraordinary steps to ensure that we have the workforce that we're going to need to deliver on this bipartisan infrastructure law. And that includes those who may not have had that tradition of many generations in their family having access to these kinds of jobs. And I am truly honored to be alongside Representative Maxine Waters, somebody I had such respect for long before my own time in public life. Someone who has challenged this country and my department to think in wiser ways about the relationship between transportation and housing. And somebody whose support for the bipartisan infrastructure law is why we are here today. After so many infrastructure weeks, so-called, that came and went without result through Congress after Congress, now here, thanks to leaders like her and, of course, the leadership of our president, allowing us to have an infrastructure decade of which the extraordinary things going on here in LA and in LAX are just a part. So thank you so much for that. As the mayor said, this for me is going to be a great trip. It's airports, ports, trains, planes, and automobiles. We're going to be looking at so many things from shipping to subways, and also the human side of that, which is the most important part of all. Under this law, this package, repairing roads and bridges, ports and transit, fixing lead pipes and expanding internet access, and these airport improvements are going to make life better in every part of the country. Today, we're awarding $1 billion for much-needed improvements at airports across the country in 85 different locations. We're talking about airports of all sizes, from small regional ones like the one that the kinds of airports and the size that I grew up with in my hometown, to major globally recognized international travel hubs like LAX. And the investment couldn't come at a more urgent time. This moment of extraordinary challenge in transportation because of the consequences of the pandemic, and extraordinary opportunity in transportation because of the investments that we're making. Right now, more people than ever are relying on air travel to see their loved ones and move goods around the country and the world. And we've seen airports and airlines struggling to meet that extraordinary level of demand. In the short term, we have been engaging the airlines on the steps that they need to take to address these disruptions. We are doing our part to help with our department's resources and the FAA. But truly, for the long term, we need to modernize our airports too, make sure that they're prepared not just for the rest of the summer travel season, but for the next decades. This is the country that ushered in the modern aviation age, and yet today, in many listings, not one American airport ranks among the top 25 in the world. We feel those shortcomings so often when we fly. So this is about taking care of the basics. We all ought to have a good place to sit or wait or eat or use the bathroom when we're waiting for a flight. When we're checking in, everyone ought to be able to get through security, check your bags, find your gate, and reach it without any unnecessary delays. If you're traveling as a parent of young children, as Chasten and I recently have become, you got to have a place to change your child when you stop for a layover. Traveling for work, you have to be able to find outlets to get your phone and laptop charged. If you have a disability, rely on a wheelchair. You ought to have the support you need to navigate huge, complex terminals. And very, very importantly, the ability to get to and from an airport is just as important as what happens once you're inside that airport under its roof. Americans ought to have the best airports in the world, and now we have a chance to move toward that response. These grants are going to help expand and improve terminals, make them more energy efficient and safer, and make them more accessible for travelers with disabilities. Right here at LAX, we are proud to be providing $50 million to support the historic modernization effort that is already underway. These funds are going to help reconstruct some 40,000 feet of terminal roadway, reconfigure the central terminal entrance so it's easier to park, get a rental car, pick somebody up, or generally get into and out of the airport as easily as possible. And this is part of a broader vision for how to make it easier to get around, including coming and going from the airport. So I'm looking forward tomorrow to cutting the ribbon on the new Crenshaw to LAX Metro line, which is going to save time and money for travelers and airport workers. This is what good infrastructure investments look like. We're seeing it here across LA, and we're seeing it across the country. Just to give you a few more examples from the grants that we're announcing today. In Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh International is adding a new landside terminal with a more efficient security checkpoint, better baggage system, new customs area, and other improvements that will make trips faster and easier and safer. In Orlando, they're constructing 4 new gates to serve aircraft of different sizes. In Chattanooga, Tennessee, they're expanding the terminal, adding new gates, improving bathrooms, providing better passenger areas, and TSA screening. In Texas, DFW is building a zero-carbon utility, providing clean energy to the airport. In Austin, they're expanding capacity, adding multilingual assistance, and restrooms for people with disabilities. Huntsville, Alabama is preparing to add new and improved escalators and elevators, nursing rooms, service animal areas, and other things to make the passenger experience more comfortable. Dexter Regional Airport in Maine, an example of a rural region where the airport can be so important, is replacing a 50-year-old terminal with a new modern one, 4 times larger, safer, and more accessible. And new taxi and bus queues in Gainesville, Florida will join new passenger boarding bridges in Minneapolis, St. Paul, solar power in Washington, Iowa, and more improvements. The list goes on and on. 85 rounds of improvements funded with this program alone this year, and more where that goes. We're excited about better travel opportunities, but this is also about better lives on the ground. And in that regard, LAX really is a role model for the rest of the country. Just a couple hours ago, I had one of the most remarkable and memorable meetings I've had as secretary. And I don't say that lightly, because I find myself in some pretty interesting rooms in this job. But what I saw this morning, joining the graduates of Hire LAX, hearing about their experiences is truly moving and something that we need to be looking at nationwide. They shared stories about how their lives, the trajectories of their lives have been changed by the opportunities for good paying jobs in construction. And they shared a contagious pride that comes with being able to take a loved one to the airport and say, I put that sign in there. I was there when we built that pillar. I know why that escalator is where it is. Since its inception, Hire LAX has trained over 250 apprentices, many of them women and people of color who had struggled in the past to find good paying jobs. It prepares them for not just jobs, but careers that will pay well, often with union positions in construction, carpentry, plumbing, and more. And most importantly, these apprentices are people who actually live in this community. Because we've heard far too many times stories from people who finally see investment come to a neighborhood near them, but don't get the impression that anybody working in those good paying jobs looks like they came from anywhere near the neighborhood. So as we continue implementing the President's infrastructure law, we're going to make sure that a fair share of jobs and contracts go to workers who are from the communities where the projects are actually happening. I want to thank you again for sharing your stories with us and for the great work that you're doing. It's truly inspiring. Airports like LAX are gateways to America's great cities, and they're gateways to America itself. Often the first thing you see when you arrive, and the last thing you see when you say goodbye. Earlier this year, Americans flew here from every corner of the country to see the Super Bowl. And in 2028, athletes will come here from every corner of the globe to compete for Olympic gold, and most of them will pass through LAX. Thanks to the investments we're announcing today and the other extraordinary work going on here, we know when they do, we will be able to demonstrate that America really is a place with so much to be proud of and the best infrastructure in the world. Thank you very much. We've got time for some questions. Variable quarterback. Great.
We're going to start with the announcement today that Kelly brought back So how does this fit in with the larger infrastructure package and how much are you spending for what's kind of interesting with this $1 billion? Is it seems kind of small or under?
So overall, across the infrastructure bill, we have $25 billion for airports. This particular program, the airport terminal program, represents $5 billion over 5 years. Today, we're announcing the first year's worth, so that first $1 billion. And one thing that's significant about this is that you don't often see investments in terminals in that side of the airport. There's been much more of a tradition of funding things like air traffic control towers, runways, other, you might call them back-of-house resources. We'll continue to do that. This is the first time since the stimulus law in the Obama administration that we've been able to support things that are more directly in the terminal that affect the passenger experience. No single source of funding can take care of all of our infrastructure needs, but this is a major injection of support. And again, whether it's what that $50 million will do specifically for that road and related project, making it easier just to get to LAX and out, or a sum that will probably seem very modest by the standards of a place like LAX, but could be absolutely game-changing in a smaller regional airport. We know this is going to make a real big difference for the passenger experience and the reliability of our aviation system.
Great. Next one to Laura in the KTLA.
I want to ask a question about summer travel. So the July 4th holiday weekend saw 1,400 canceled flights, 14,000 flights delayed. I know you met with airlines ahead of the holiday. Is the July 4th weekend performance acceptable? And if not, what do you plan to do?
So we have not yet reached an acceptable level of delays and cancellations, but I was encouraged to see the airlines take a number of steps after our conversations after Memorial Day, and an improvement if you look at the July 4th weekend compared to Memorial. Not enough, but a step in the right direction. Several overlapping factors have contributed to this, and we know that everyone has to do their part. Bottom line is, airlines need to be prepared to service the tickets that they sell, and that includes making sure there's adequate staffing, making sure that there are realistic schedules that they can support, and making sure when there is an issue, you can get somebody on the phone to help you deal with it. And so we're going to be reviewing what's going on the customer service side, because the only thing worse than getting delayed or canceled is being unable to reach somebody to help you sort it out.
Are you considering enforcement actions?
We are. We always are. And I would point also to what we've done around refunds. We actually imposed the largest fine in the history of our consumer protection program last year because we saw that certain airlines, not all airlines are alike, but certain airlines were failing to provide the refunds that they are legally required to do. Our Office of Consumer Protection is getting about 3 times as many complaints as normal, an overwhelming volume, to be honest. We're going through those, and where necessary and where appropriate, we'll not hesitate to enforce. But of course, what we'd much rather see is a passenger not having that problem in the first place.
We have time for one more question. We're going to Susan at Fox 11.
So critics of the airline industry say that it really is up to the federal government to go to the airlines and say, you need to open up your books. We're not liking the fact, or the critics are saying, I go Expedia or Alaska Airlines, swipe my credit card, they take my money. And if they have no intention, as you say, to fill that ticket, to make sure that that ticket gets me from point A to point B, is there some funny number gaming there? Is there some reason that the federal government should be looking a little closer into the way they're operating now post-pandemic?
So we're going to use all of the tools that we have for consumer protection to make sure that passengers are treated fairly. As a matter of fact, we're in the process right now of beefing up our authorities under the law that provides for us to respond to unfair and deceptive practices by airlines. They have certain obligations. A ticket isn't just a ticket, it's a contract between an airline and a passenger. And they need to make sure that they can get you to where you're going, or worst case, properly take care of you when they can't. That means realistic schedules, being prepared to service the tickets that they sell. And yes, we will continue to examine what our authorities can allow for, while also, of course, making sure that we're providing any support collaboratively so that these problems don't happen.
So not canceling flights in order to fill another flight at 100%. This particular critic was saying mass transit doesn't work like that. You don't expect every subway car to be filled to the brim. So they were saying that's why the system is breaking down. If your goal is only to fill a plane 100%, that's part of the criticism.
So we have several things happening at once, right? One is the overwhelming return of demand. That's actually a good thing. It reflects a lot of economic strength, but the airlines have to be prepared for that. We saw a lot of people go into early retirement during the pandemic. At the same time, the taxpayers provided tens of billions of dollars of support for the purpose of keeping people on the job. And of course, we're glad that that funding successfully prevented our airline system from collapsing completely. Now it means there's high expectations that come with that. As businesses, they get to make different kinds of business decisions, but they have to be consistent with their legal obligations, and they have to be consistent with good customer service.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Gary.
Cool.